Hey, Kristi, so welcome to the show. It's nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, Kristi, yeah, why don't we jump right in? I know you have a pretty rich history of real estate, especially in your area, in that Seattle area. So, starting
Yeah.
off, can you share the moment or series of events that led you to realize that real estate was your true calling?
Yeah, I think that that is something that's evolved over time. It wasn't something that I started out, seeking to become a real estate agent. I was actually pre-law in college and I graduated from the University of Washington in just over 3 years, took my LSATs. I was on a path to go into law, and then my husband and I got engaged, and I decided I didn't want to be in law school during our first year of marriage. So kind of put that off for a little while and worked in corporate communications and marketing for a big gaming company here in the Pacific Northwest. And I kind of fell into real estate because I realized that I didn't want to be in a corporate office. That times are so different now when you can have a much more flexible schedule, do
Mm,
some time at home, some time in an office. 20 plus years ago, that wasn't nearly as accepted as it is now. And I just felt like I was spending a lot of time away from my baby. And my mom had recently gotten into real estate, and she was working in a new construction site for a local home builder here, and doing really well, but she was looking to branch out on her own. And I actually got into real estate to become her licensed assistant. So for many years,
mm.
we worked as a partnership, as a team together, which as a young mom was fantastic, because I had her, to help with my daughter, and then my second daughter when she came along, and we kind of tag teamed whenever we needed to, and we both had such different skills and personalities. We really were able to kind of take on different pieces of that. So it was something that was born out of a more of a kind of a necessity to do,
Mm.
be the kind of parent that I wanted to be, but also provide for our family. And then over the last 21 years has just turned into something, I can't imagine doing anything else, but it's definitely evolved a lot over the last 20 years, just like the industry itself has. But yeah, definitely was something I more fell into and
Mm.
and came to love than really sought out myself.
Okay. And are there any aspects of your previous experiences that have shaped your approach to real estate today?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's part of why I've grown with it and into it so much, is because, I do a lot of negotiation, a lot of contracts. That's very much was kind of in my lane when I was pre-law. And then when I worked in for a gaming company, I was all marketing. It was all, writing and editing and marketing materials. And that's definitely a huge part of what I do, right now. So I feel like it combines the best of both, kind of the contract side of things with more of the creative marketing, side of things that I'm equally good at. And I think it kind of brings together a lot of the skills that I think are really important, and definitely things that I'm really quite good at. So
Right, absolutely. And I know you emphasize the importance of building relationships in your career. So how do you maintain and nurture these connections over time, especially in the fast-paced and competitive market we're in?
yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think, it's different. If I were starting out doing real estate today in today's market, I think I would be doing it differently. But when, 20 plus years ago, we built a business that was very, very organic, very grassroots. We talked to people. They found out we were in real estate. I was heavily into we were part of a very conservative church family. My father was a senior pastor. We couldn't talk a lot about, with churchgoers about what we did. We couldn't market to them. We weren't actively pursuing this community that we were very much a part of, because it just wasn't, it wasn't appropriate. And so we built that very, very slowly, relationally. People would use us if they had heard of us, but it was a slow go from the start. We just didn't know of a whole lot of other opportunities in order to kind of get the word out, to have people give us a chance. And I think that's a huge, advantage that I guess you can call it one way or the other. I think that the fake it till you make it kind of a scene is pretty popular with a lot of newer real estate agents. If you can get on social media and show that you're touring through these, beautiful homes and can talk intelligently about it and get in front of people, they feel like they connect with you and they feel like they connect with your experience. And you may not have as much depth as the people who are watching or seeing or listening to you think that you have, but you might be able to pull it off and then build on top of that and eventually build that into something that you've kind of hoped or started with, when you were kind of developing it over time. But we really had to do it authentically, organically. And so I think that the connections that we made, the people that we served, the people we took care of, were our word of mouth. They were all that we had to go on. We didn't have these extravagant marketing, ideas. We didn't have these platforms that we could build off of. And so I think, relationally was the only way we could do it back then. Build the trust and take really good care of people and make sure to exceed their expectations. And I have had the privilege of, well, I've had my longest client now. I've helped he and his family buy and sell 12 homes.
Wow.
Over the last, 17, 18 years, I've been working with him. I've had the privilege of helping people, work through challenges of not just first-time home buyers, but move-up buyers, empty nesters, retirement living. So I think it's a testament to kind of building and maintaining those relationships and really having an authentic connection. This is not a process-oriented job. This is a relational oriented job, and you've got to care about people and you've got to care about the long term, because if you're transactionally based and this is, just a process for you, then you're going to have a very short and something that isn't going to be sustainable over a long period of time. I like to think that our business really does have a lot of roots. It's really deep, and that was very intentional.
Yeah, I agree. If you're transactional, you're going to have a tough and frustrating time, I think,
Yeah.
and end up
Yep.
disappointed. So,
Yep, for
and
sure.
you mentioned if you were starting off today, you would do it differently. So, what would you go full in social media from day one if you were starting off today?
I think, and this is what I advise, I have a lot of new agents who, come to me and ask, gosh, what should I do? How do I build a business? How do I get people to trust me? How do I get those first opportunities? And I think today, I think it's really important for people to think about or consider joining a team. I think that it's very, very hard to earn trust, to build those kind of relationships when you don't have the experience or the history that goes along with it. But if you can do, and I think personal assessment and skills assessment is so important, to really know, what do you bring to the table? You don't just go to a team, you don't go to a partnership and, ask, for them to provide you leads for you sitting at their open houses. There's got to be value that you bring to that. And so knowing what you're really good at, knowing what you might have that could fill in the hole of that team or that partnership is a critical piece of being a part of a successful team. So if you, have a lot of connections because you're, trying to obtain the first time home buyers and you're recently out of college and you've got this whole huge connection of first time home buyers that are, pre-qualified, maybe that's your into a team. Maybe you're great, you did video recording for your college sports and you've got a great, video sense, and you're going to a team that maybe social media isn't their thing because they just don't have the resources. You can provide that, to them. Maybe you're exceptional with finances and can put everything in a database and a spreadsheet and do a CRM for them that they've never had. So I think, you really have to evaluate, what do you bring to the table? Get in with a team that needs that values what you can bring, and then learn from them and grow and figure out, the best practices, figure out what works for them. And when you bring clients in, they're going to trust you all that much more, because obviously you've got the rapport, you've got the relationship, but you need that experience coupled with it. And that's what that experienced team brings to that relationship. So I think it's important. I think it's, you've got to kind of have both pieces of that in order to build the depth of that business.
Okay, and perfect segue into team. So, as a natural leader yourself with a keen eye for detail, how do you ensure that your team meets the high standards that you've set?
Yeah. Um, I just recently joined a networking group, and I've never been a part of a networking group before, partially because they're usually, real estate agents are the first piece of those networking group that gets filled, but also because I am so particular about having experience on those contractors and vendors that I refer to people. And so I think I'm very, very picky and very critical. I think I have very high expectations. So I think that for me, experience is a huge piece of that. And so that's the number one first thing that I look for if I'm going to bring on anyone, either as part of my direct team or as a referral partner of mine, because I think it's all of that reflects back on me. All of the people that I connect my clients with, that's part of the whole process. And you can go through, an entire process, have a great transaction, and you get towards the end and something falls apart in the end and it taints your client's view of the entire process, whether it came directly from you or indirectly. So I think experience is the number one thing that I look for when I'm looking to bring somebody on as part of my team. And then they've got to have, word of mouth referrals. They've got to come from a person or people or group that I trust who has similar high level expectations that I do. Because ultimately, like I said, whenever I refer, it's a reflection on me. And so there's a lot of experience on my team.
Okay. And let's go into talking about contracts, like your closing. So negotiating tough contracts is another one of your key stress. Can you walk us
Yeah.
through particularly challenging negotiation and how you successfully navigated it?
Yeah. This one, this one is really interesting to think about because I've had some challenging negotiations over the years, but I think one of the ones that really sticks out at me, I'd had a house on the market for a little while. The clients were really, really tough to begin with. They wanted, I had to be present for every showing. They actually wanted me to rope off areas in their home with red ropes so that people couldn't walk into, touch their furniture, pull chairs out, open door. I mean, they wanted me to treat it like a museum in essence. We had to put signs on that they didn't want anyone using the restrooms while they were there. They wanted me to follow them around because they didn't like the idea of people being in their personal spaces in their closet. Just a very unique couple with some very unusual expectations for selling their house. So it had already been kind of a challenging experience. And then we finally got an offer. It was well under what my clients were hoping to get, but they were pretty serious about moving out of the area. They'd already purchased another home. And so I worked with that other agent. We worked really hard to come to an agreement. We went back and forth on price, went back and forth on what was included and not included. And so it already felt like there was a little bit of tension there. And we had highlighted this beautiful backyard that they had recently done. There was a custom fire pit and a custom built-in barbecue and this gorgeous landscape patio. And when it came down to it, at the end, they told me that they were planning on taking the grill because it was a gift from her father, and it was essentially built in to the whole kind of outdoor kitchen area that they had there. So removing it and replacing it was not going to be easy. So they threatened to pull out if they couldn't take it. The buyers threatened to cancel the contract because it was, essentially a built-in part of the contract that should have been left. It was, and when you get down to that point, and you're that close, and I think we were 2 weeks before closing, tensions are high, people's emotions get involved, and you just want this thing to end. And I remember the day before closing, they had moved out. My husband and I were in there. We were putting a grill into this place. We were getting custom pieces to fill in the gaps. I mean, at that point, you just do what you have to do because finishing strong to me in that scenario was so important. I wanted my clients to have such a good taste in their mouth about how hard I worked for them, that how I got there at the last minute didn't really make any difference. And I've got a lot of brokers who I respect a ton who don't give any concessions. They wouldn't even think about, sweeping their clients' floors or cleaning up or doing repairs or hiring somebody to come in and take care of things. But and they do a great job. And that's certainly a business practice and one way that you can run it. I have never been one to shy away from doing that extra stuff and going above and beyond for my clients. I don't usually get and install grills. That certainly was more than what I, would normally consider doing or appropriate. But,
Yeah,
you know, it,
definitely over
it's,
and beyond.
yeah. But when you're in the, you're in the bottom of the ninth and you just see that you are in the home stretch, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And in the end, those have been some of my most um, trusted, great clients who have referred me to other people. And I never would have thought in the middle of that transaction that that's how it would have ended. But we finished strong. And I think it was because I was just willing to go above and beyond and take care of them. And the buyers didn't know any different. So it kind of
Okay.
came full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, and the red ropes, that's a new one. I've yet to hear that one yet. How did you navigate that with the with buyers who were looking at the home?
Um, I think we made it very clear. I always, every time, we have showing time here in Seattle, so agents can book, right online, and they don't have to talk to the agent before showing. But I would call every agent before they came in, let them know my clients are really, really particular. They'd prefer that you not bring children. They prefer that you not use the restroom. They'd prefer that you not touch their personal things. So I will be there the whole time. And I'm just giving you a heads up because I'd like you to communicate with your client. Otherwise, it makes it a little awkward when we're all there and I'm asking them not to touch things. So I would proactively talk to each agent who is bringing their clients through. And for all open houses, I had at least two of us there all the time. So one could be on the upper level, I could be on the main level. So we could kind of watch and assess and make sure that people kind of stuck with that. But it required some creative thinking and planning and a lot of time and effort. So
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of proactiveness, I see.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
interesting. Wow.
And this was not, I mean, we're not talking about a, you know, 15-20 million dollar property. It was a beautiful, nice home, but it wasn't anything unusual or like it, there weren't any particular valuables or there was no collection. He wasn't, I've been into homes where the homeowner was a curator of artifacts or
Mm.
had a special collection of valuables. It wasn't anything like that I think would have warranted that kind of particularity, but it wasn't my thing.
So it wasn't Bezos's home,
No, 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 not even close.
not this time.
No, no.
So, Christy, I mean, you seem to have cultivated a seamless and fun experience for your clients as well. What specific strategies do you use to ensure that first-time home buyers feel supported and understood throughout the process?
Well, first-time homebuyers are a unique breed, and I think that that's probably where I customize the experience the most, because I think a lot of times they've gotten some really, some grandiose ideas from looking on social media of what they can have in their home. They think that they can do a lot of DIY projects most of them are, fully integrated and new in their jobs and are working a lot. So their time availability versus what they think they can do doesn't always match up. Most of the time, if they haven't bought anything together before, the husband and the wife or the partners don't always agree on exactly what they like together. And so I think that is where listening and asking a lot of questions comes into play the most. So I have a questionnaire that I go through with all of my first time home buyers. I've got a great process that I lay out and go through with them so that they know every step of the way what's coming next. So there are very few surprises, because every new thing that comes about is a surprise anyways. So I want as little about the process to surprise them. And so we go through a comprehensive analysis of what it is that they're looking for. We kind of talk through their wish lists, their needs, and then we do a lot of looking. I have two first-time home buyers I'm working with right now. They're probably not ready to purchase until early to mid 2025. But I'm taking them out right now because I want them to get that experience. I want them to walk through homes. You can only understand so much when you look at pictures. So we're going out almost every weekend. We're taking a look at homes that fit their budget. We're going all over in different areas. I want them to experience. I want them to tell me. We walk through houses together and I ask for their feedback on everything. which is great when you've got talkative, outgoing clients. When you're having to like pull information out of one or the other person, it's a little bit harder. But a lot of times you find that one of them is making the primary decisions anyways, and the other one is not as talkative, but doesn't really care as much about the details either. So I think it's just a matter of going through. I think you take a lot more time with first-time home buyers. You set the expectations early. A lot of times those are the ones that need to lose a contract or two in order to kind of understand how the process works. So it takes a lot of patience, whereas a lot of my, older clients, they're very much more business minded. This is, they've got certain check marks and boxes that they need to check. They understand what each other, if there's a partnership, likes and appreciates. They've probably already had some experience with the home buying process before. They know what they do and don't need in a home or what their preferences are. And so there it's just kind of cultivating that and tending to it a little bit better. But with first-time home buyers, I think it's really about the education, walking them through the process and really understanding what it is that they need separately and together.
Okay. And Kristi, question. So in the last probably 2 to 3 years, I've seen a lot where buyer and seller expectations aren't congruent. Well, how do
Yeah.
you deal with clients with unrealistic expectations as far as what they may be able to get for their homes or what they may be offering for properties they like? How do you deal with those types of clients and those
Yeah.
expectations?
I think if I'm dealing with a seller, you know, I I will present to them, immediately, even before I meet with them, kind of a brief bio on me and the comps that I'm pulling up for their house. I want them to have done the research with me before I ever even get to sit in front of them. Because when I'm sitting in front of those potential clients, those home sellers, I want to talk through, how does your house compare? Not, walking through spreadsheets of, here's the houses in your neighborhood that have sold. They've probably already looked at that. They know their community, they know their area. And then we talk through, what will potential buyers, what have you not loved about your house? Why are you making the changes? What will other potential buyers see? You don't have at least a 3/4 bathroom on the main level. And we've got so many multi-generational families. They need a shower or a bath on the main level because they've got parents that come and stay for this is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to prepare for. So we talk about, what are those things that potential buyers are going to see and feel as issues when it comes to making an offer on the home. And then we try to set the expectations right out of the gate. So whether that's in a pricing strategy, whether that's in the marketing remarks, whether that's in the kind of inspection that we do and the repairs or the updates that we do as a reflection of that, to try and do that. And then I think with buyers, just kind of like we just talked about in the last question, a lot of times they have to lose in order to realize that they may not be in charge. And sometimes that's a little bit of a painful process. But, I still have clients right now who are like, oh, can we go and see that house next Wednesday? Well, the offer review date is Monday. And if you're not available this weekend, like, that's fine, but it's likely going to be off the market by the time you're available. And so, again, it's just kind of setting those expectations, letting them have the chance to make small failures so that we don't have to fail when it's the right time. So I think, when you look at this as a longer term process, there've got to be some little hiccups along the way so that by the time it's right, once they've found that perfect home, once they have the strategy and they know that this is the right time to sell, you've given them all of the tools. You've gone through all of the work ahead of time so that that's really, you've primed them for when that time is right.
Okay. Yeah, and I hear from a lot of realtors that, I mean, I'm sure you know as well that when things don't go well, you're always the one that's blamed. So how do you deal with situations like that? And do you try to bring it back to the expectations you set initially and the conversations you've had before when those type of conversations usually
Yeah,
happens?
I I think that the biggest takeaway from those kinds of experience are communication. When I'm working with buyers and we are even thinking about making an offer on the property, I've already been in touch with the listing broker. I'm talking to them about what are the seller's expectations? Is there anything that's not in the listing that's important to them? Are they moving out of state? Are they moving close by? Is timing, I'm already talking to them about what it is that the sellers need on the other side so that I can educate my buyers. Okay, we're going to go in under full price. We're going to go in, we're competing. So here's what we need to do. We need to make our offer look more attractive in a way that the seller is going to appreciate, so that at least at the end of the day, if your client loses out, you know that you've put your best foot forward. I think that's the only time that a client is disappointed, is when they feel like they haven't been able to put their best foot forward. And so I think that when you can communicate and you understand what it is that makes a strong offer in that unique situation, because every offer, every sale, every situation is unique. You've got to figure out what the seller needs and what the buyer needs. And if you can put those two things together, and you can only do that by communicating with the other broker. And if you don't do that, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've all of a sudden just received an offer in my inbox on a house that I had listed, never heard from the broker, don't even know if the clients have toured through the home, didn't meet them at an open house. So you don't have any idea what communication has been zero. And the offer it may be a fairly well-written offer, but it doesn't speak to my clients. It doesn't have in that offer what it is that my clients need or are looking for. And I don't want to do a bunch of extra work if I don't need to. I don't want to go back and forth countering back, when it could have just been a seamless thing, because they could have easily asked, do your clients need a rent back? What is their preferred close date? Is there anything else that's important to them on the inspection? All of those kinds of things are things that you can easily have a conversation with. And then you put your best foot forward. And if ultimately you can't waive financing, or you can't go higher on the price, or something that is just a non-negotiable, when you know that you've lost out because it was something you weren't willing to negotiate on, ultimately you've put your best foot forward, and you can only be as disappointed as kind of that interim time frame allows. Otherwise, you just kind of get back up and you move on, knowing that you did your best and it wasn't the right fit.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have a solid foundation of repeat clients, and that speaks volumes about your service. So, what do you think are the key factors that keep your clients coming back to you, and how do you build long-term loyalty?
That's a good question. I really I communicate a lot. I am constantly, especially because I work in a hyper local area. Even for clients that have moved out of state, I will drive by their homes and I'll send them a quick video message or text message. Just drove by your old home. The new clients are taking, or the new homeowners are taking such great care of the yard. You'd be so pleased. Um, just reminding them, I do holiday gifts to all of my local and out of state clients. I hand deliver those during the holidays. I feel like those personal touch points is just a continuation of the relationship that I've built with them. So it just reinforces when you've had a great transaction and that has ended well and you've built a relationship. It's just like anything else, any other friendship or relationship that you continue to nurture. You continue to invest in them. You let them know when you've had a thought about them or something comes up about the experience. You let them know when you drove past the dog park and saw kids hanging out there and the dogs where they used to bring their dogs to play, and you just stay top of mind. I have a client who had mentioned to me in my gift basket from a couple of years ago, where did I get that jam? And it was actually made by my sister-in-law, and I had her make up a few new batches of jam, and I bought some from her, and I went and delivered those to a client, because those little things show how much I care about them as a person, about them as a family. And I think that goes a long ways. It's been what has sustained my business for all of these years, and for all of these other new tools and strategies that I'm implementing, that still has been and always will be at the core of my business. And that is just continuing to fuel those relationships in a really healthy and thoughtful way.
Okay, and my next question probably feeds into the one I just asked, but I know you take pride in immersing clients in the community. How do you
Yeah.
go about introducing clients to the lifestyle and culture of the neighborhoods that they're moving into, and why? Why is that so important to you?
Because it's not, I'm not selling somebody a house. I'm selling them their new life. This is, especially when they've got kids, when they're coming into a new area, this is their new community. This is where they're going to raise their kids, where they're going to grow up, where they're going to meet new people. So I see it as a huge privilege to be able to introduce their kids to the coach of the soccer team that is in that child's age group, to take them to the new ice cream shop so that they can feel like they've gotten a chance to go to one of these new places that their kids are going to be at, to introduce them to the coffee shops and take them to restaurants in the area. I've done a pizza truck, gourmet pizza truck for the neighbors to introduce them to the neighborhood in a really small cul-de-sac like community. Just, I think making a change like that can be such an overwhelming experience. And I think especially as, you talk to eh, from elementary kids to teens, that transition as they look back on their life can be one of the most stressful, um, mentally challenging time in their life. And if you can help them feel integrated, if you can help them feel like they have the start of a community, I think that goes a long ways into making them feel safe and feel connected. And ultimately, that's, I, I see my job as a real estate agent as a piece of a connector, and and I've done this for long enough and will continue to do it for long enough that I think that feeling a part of your community is one of the greatest gifts that I can help my clients feel. And ultimately, that's very hard uh, to start when you don't have a little bit of help. So,
Okay. And Kristi, I know integrity for you is the cornerstone of your reputation. How do you maintain that even when faced with tough decisions or pressure to close a deal?
yeah. Um, I think for the most part, it's just really staying true to who you are and how you operate, no matter what. Putting my clients first. It is always about what is best for them over what's best in any other part of the transaction. And ultimately, you hope that you get another agent on the other side of things that you can have real conversations with, because ultimately, you want a smooth transaction. So when you're talking about, dealing in a tough negotiation or that's usually because you don't have somebody on the other side of things who is either putting in as much effort or who knows as much about the process as you do. So sometimes it just takes a little bit more hand holding and finessing and educating. I just had one who actually ended up being the neighbor across the street. I sold their home, and the agent was not communicating at all with those buyers. And I was representing the seller. And I knew that once my clients left and they were moving to New York, and these people moved in, I was literally going to be their neighbor across the street. And their agent wasn't doing right by them at all. He wasn't communicating. He wasn't responding to my emails. He was late to every opportunity that we had to get together. Didn't even show up to the first showing when he was supposed to. And I was leaving from another showing and ended up showing them through. And then he missed the final walkthrough. And I had the buyer up in my face, like accusing me in my face of not doing something that they were promised was going to be done. And it was completely outside of the contract. Their agent had said there was firewood in the backyard. Well, there was a fire pit and it was a wood burning fireplace. Well, he told us that would be gone. That's personal property. It's not personal property. It's meant to service two different areas of the home. My clients left this in order to help take care of, well, they didn't want that and he had promised. And, you just kind of go back and forth. And at the end of the day, you hope that you and the other agent and the clients are easy to work with. That's a tough phrase. that they're reasonable. That's what I think at the end of the day you want, are people who are reasonable. And if they're not reasonable, and this can be a very, very stressful process, this can be a very stressful time in people's lives. I think as long as you keep a cool head and you keep objective about things and you work really hard to be communicative and explain the challenges, I think that most of the time you can win people over, stay your ground, and create a really positive end of the experience. But I think just staying true to yourself, staying true to your clients, and advocating for them in a very firm but humble way is the way that I have found to be the best thing that I can do for them. You know, I'm not aggressive, but I am assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't say that I talk over anybody. I definitely listen a lot, but when it comes to advocating for my clients, I'm not going to get pushed around.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you are, you know, communicate in a very assertive but humble way with grace, and, you know, you lead with grace all the time, I think that that's paramount to making sure that you can lead with integrity.
All right, good stuff. And with clients being such a diverse group, how do you tailor your approach when working with different types of clients, from first-time home buyers to seasoned investors? Can you share
Yeah.
how you adjust your strategies for these diverse needs?
Yeah. I think too, you know, living in Seattle too, we are in a melting pot of different cultures. And it's not just the experience with the home buying process. You know, sometimes it's an experience with the, you know, a huge change in culture, a huge change in environment and expectations. And so I think, again, a lot of it just comes down to listening. You know, you've got to tailor every client interaction that you have to that client specifically. If you as an agent have a preconceived notion about what this process looks like, or how you're going to treat people, or how you're going to take care of things, and you're not listening, then I think that this whole thing is going to end up blowing up in your face. I think you can smooth talk people for a short period of time, but I think that your true colors will always come through. And so I think listening, educating. I mean, I am constantly doing additional seminars. I'm constantly growing, adapting my skills, you know, from, you know, feng shui to vastu to, you know, all of these different types of things that we also have to understand, because it may not be, I sold a home not too long ago in a neighborhood where it was culturally very, very Middle Eastern. And we knew that even though my clients were not Indian, we knew that it was going to appeal to a large group of Indian population. And trying to understand, this was kind of one of my first interactions with having to deal with Vastu, which is not at anything like, you know, what I had experienced with feng shui, because you deal with it from a different, whether you're from certain parts of the country or have certain religious beliefs, or like, it all changes. So you really can't, you know, just place something in a certain area or change things around or have it facing a different direction and appeal to a large group of people. So I think knowing your client, knowing who that house is going to appeal to, knowing what the end result is going to be, you just, you operate from an end goal and you work backwards. So who is that going to appeal to, and what do I need to learn and understand about either that family, that client, that culture, that area, in order to make this as successful as possible. And so I think that's what it, you know, when I talk about, you know, working long term, it's a long-term strategy. It's a long-term strategy with each client, just not just with my business, but with each client. And you want to make sure that that process is as smooth as possible. So you've got to go with the end goal in mind, and then back up your resources, you know, to where you're at in order to achieve that. So whether it's diverse clients culturally or clients that have and haven't purchased property in the past, you really just have to look at those with a unique individual eye and create a custom plan for each one of those. I love my investor clients because you take a lot of the subjectivity out of it with investors, right?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a fresh it's a nice change. I love that I get to work with so many different types of people in my job, because you can go through a very hand-holding, very communicative experience with first-time home buyers, and then you get an investor client and he has a bottom line that he wants to meet, and I can go through and I can do a video tour and give him or her a spreadsheet, yes or no, it meets or doesn't meet the criteria, and boom, we've made an offer. So it's very, very different depending on what type of client you're looking for and how invested they are in the property and for what reasons.
Awesome, awesome.
I don't know if
And
that actually answered your question, but I
no,
guess I kind of went off on a
no,
couple
it
different
did.
tangents there,
It
but yeah.
absolutely did, definitely. And Christy, I know you're passionate also about creating beautiful spaces. You kind of touched on that briefly just now. How do you balance the aesthetics of a home with the practical needs of your clients? And
Yeah.
do you have a favorite transformation that you've been a part of?
Um, so I think whenever I'm advising my clients, especially, I get a lot of clients who call me in to say, we're thinking about selling in sometime in the near future. We're just not sure what to do with our home. How do we update it for our needs, but we also want it to be appealing to a future buyer. I think that my real estate agent hat always says, keep it as neutral as possible and make anything that you do that's personalized easy to change. So from an aesthetic point of view, when I come into a home, I want my goal is to help a buyer envision themselves there. So if I'm representing the seller, I'm looking around the house at what are things that are going to turn a buyer off. Is it an obnoxious wall color? Is it outdated wallpaper? Is it too much furniture in an area? Is it just clutter? Is it deferred maintenance? All of those things are things that I'm looking at. And so when a client comes to me and says, how do I make this space feel my own, but also appeal to a future buyer in the near future? I think that it's important to keep in mind that making custom changes should be small. Making changes that are going to appeal to a larger group of people is much more important for the bigger things. So I have a client who just recently got done doing like an all green kitchen, and it is definitely their style and their taste, and they love it. But they called me in, and to consult ahead of time, and I said, "Are you going to be here for at least the next 10 years?" And they said, "Oh yeah." Oh yeah, 10 years plus. So we're gonna grow into this home for a long time. That is great. You can do something that is this custom, for your kitchen. It's not going to appeal to everybody. You're going to take away a lot of the buyer pool, but if you're not planning on selling, then do it for you. Do it for what makes sense for you. But when I come back in 10, 12, 15 years and we're going to list this house, we're going to talk about what it might take to get this kitchen back neutralized a little bit so that buyers can see themselves here. So I think that I think that homeowners should be free to do what they want to do to make the space feel like their own, keeping in mind that there are some things that they might need to do in order to appeal to a larger group of people when they sell it, if that's the end goal.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Seattle area has a lot of highly competitive submarkets. How do you
Yeah.
help your clients navigate bidding wars or tough market conditions to secure their desired properties?
Yeah. I think writing an exceptional contract is second only to communication. So when you are in a multiple offer situation, you're in a bidding war situation, you've got a very competitive market. The first step that we already talked about is good communication with that listing broker. You've got to establish rapport. You've got to make sure that listing broker knows that you are going to do your job and you are going to make this transaction smooth and seamless from the get-go. Because I guarantee you, most listing agents know their clients. They have some influence, some input into the decisions that end up being made on those offers. So if you've established a good rapport, or in many cases, I know the agents because we've worked together in the past, that communication piece is key. And then the second thing is you write an exceptional offer. You write an exceptional contract. You don't miss boxes. You don't leave things up to chance. You make sure that it is strong, that it is clear, that you've included all the necessary addendums and not any extra fluff that doesn't need to be there. You make sure that you've advocated for your client well in that contract. And you put, I always put, and this is what I teach any new agents that I train, when you send across an email, you have the top line right there in the email. I want, as soon as that communication comes across to the listing broker when we're in a competitive situation, I want them to immediately see and know, hey, we've got our ducks in a row. My lender is going to call out to you. They're going to make contact. They're going to make sure you know that my clients are pre-approved, underwritten, that everything is good to go. And you've got the top line of this right in front of you so that they can easily see that I'm going to make their job easier and make the process smooth and clean for their clients. And I think that goes a long way. I have won over a number of contracts where it's been a really, really competitive situation because I've communicated and I wrote an exceptional offer.
Mm. Yeah, and Kristi, I mean, it's clear you have a very strong work ethic. So how do you stay motivated and maintain this level of dedication in your daily work, especially during slower periods in the market?
Yeah. That started, I think, because my whole goal in doing this, in excelling in real estate, was because I wanted to show my daughters that you can be a good mom who's present, who is patient, who is involved, and you can still contribute financially to your family in a very real way. And so that has been my motivation for years. I wanted to show my girls that they could do this too, that they could have the life that they wanted, they could have the education that they wanted, have a career that they're really proud of, and have a family that they want to experience, that they can, I don't want to say have it all, because there's always going to be some sacrifices you have to make when you're going after things that you're passionate about, but that they have choices. I wanted them to know that they had choices. And in order to do that, I had to model that for them.
Yeah.
So, you can't just, tell your kid that they can be the president, if you don't model a hard work ethic and do the right classes and education and training and all of that. So you've got to practice what you preach. And so my motivation for all of these years really has been, because I want to show my daughters what they can do when they put all of the pieces together, and it just fits like a puzzle. So, and now that they're grown, and they're starting lives on their own, I now want my husband and I to have the life in empty nesting and retirement and beyond that we have worked so hard for. So you just have to keep, figuring out how to pivot your business. How do you, and I think that's the challenge, especially, and I talk about this, women, I'm almost 50 years old, and to pivot a business that you've been doing for this long, what feels like right now every year, isn't easy. I mean, to figure out new strategies, to figure out a different business plan, to evaluate, where you put your marketing dollars and realize that that whole section of what you've spent money on marketing wise is no longer valid. You have to really pivot and reevaluate this business. And that's not for the faint of heart, especially as you get up. I'm glad that my mom and her age retired. I don't think she could have done real estate in COVID and post COVID and in a social media, era and time. And so I think you just kind of have to figure out how to pivot your business. You have to have clear priorities, and you've got to have really good resources behind you that kind of fill in those gaps where I've got a great videographer. And boy, if it weren't for him, I don't think that I could do social media, because I am a very typical type A firstborn child. I do not want to do it if I don't know what I'm doing or if I think I'm going to fail. So I get analysis paralysis, and that definitely impacts, learning and doing new things in this industry. But when you've got great people around you who can fill in those gaps of where you're weak or lend their expertise to kind of partner up alongside of you, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. And with all the technology changes and social media platforms that are out there now, are there any tools or platforms that you find indispensable in today's market?
Um, yeah, I think my hardest challenge with um, all of the platforms is figuring out what content works right on each of them and how to repurpose or change or adapt content on each of those platforms that's going to speak to the people who are on those platforms. So, while my kids, would love for me to be on TikTok, that is not, an area that I have, really gotten into. Although I think that my social media game on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, that's really where I've decided to kind of focus my efforts, but in different ways, and I think it speaks to working with my business coach right now about kind of honing in on what my ideal client looks like. That's hard because I really do enjoy working with such a wide variety of clients in different stages. And so we've adapted what that's going to look like to figure out, all right, well, how are we targeting this group of people, and what does that look like, and what do these videos look like, and what are we speaking to in the process? And this group really wants to hear some experience stories, or this one really wants to understand how you integrate them into the neighborhood, and what are the best coffee shops, and where are the best places for them to go, and what's the walkability of this area, where are the dog parks, and all of that. So I think just understanding who you're trying to appeal to is really right now what is driving my kind of content management on different platforms, because I'm trying to be really intentional and really authentic at the same time. And so I'm really, kind of thinking back to what does that look like, and who am I trying to appeal to, and then creating content that I think is going to speak to people. And I hope that that comes across as natural and real, and I want them to get to know me and feel like I'm a partner before they ever even think about using me to do a transaction for them. I want them to like me and feel like they know me, and that trust is there, because that's the only client that I won't work with. And I think this took a lot of years of taking on clients who didn't trust me, who thought they knew better, or didn't want to listen to my advice, or want to do things according to this process that we had established. Is that the only client I won't work with is a client who doesn't trust me. And I think that's just that's doomed to fail from the beginning. So if I can establish trust, if a client comes to me because a potential client comes to me because they feel like they already know me and trust me and believe that I'm going to do right by them, then I think I've done my job on social media. I'm not on social media to get clients. I'm on social media to attract trust.
Okay. All right, and one more before we hop into the lightning round, Kristi.
Okay.
What legacy do you hope to leave in real estate, in the industry as a whole, and both within the Puget Sound area and beyond?
It's a really interesting question. For many, many years doing real estate the way that we had traditionally done it, I didn't have any idea that it was done differently in different parts of the country. I didn't have tools and resources that, told me that real estate in North Carolina is different than real estate in New York, and that contracts and the way that they go through escrow and that process and the offers and all of that were so different. And it has been in these last few years, I did a lot of training with Ryan Serhant really early on when he was working with newer agents, and have met brokers from all over the world. And I think that gives me a really unique advantage, because I think that working in this industry is way more collaborative than I ever knew was possible. And if I can bring tools and resources and pieces of information from all of these brokers across the country and across the world that I've met and get to interact with, I can be the very best advocate for my clients here locally. And what I would hope that they would do they would hope that they would see was that not only was I there for them personally, but I represented them better than anyone else could have, because I was creative and proactive and communicative and made this process smooth. I can't tell you how many clients I have had write a review after the fact and say, we worked with a lot of real estate agents and we didn't know that it could be done as well as Kristi did it. And that means so much to me, because it's one thing to impress somebody who's never used a real estate agent before, a first-time home buyer who doesn't know the difference in the process. But to be able to work with people who have bought and sold many homes in the past and who might be jaded by their past experiences, I would hope that I would leave a legacy that I did it different, that I did it different because I cared and because I had the tools and the resources and experience to make this process different than anything that they'd never experienced before.
Okay. And how do you want to be remembered by your clients and your peers?
Um, I I think that, kind of going back, not to sound like a broken record, but somebody that they could trust.
Hmm.
That they could trust. When I'm training people, I'm giving them honest advice. When I'm working with people, I'm giving them honest experience. When I'm writing contracts, it is all about trust. And I think that people come to me and ask me questions because they know that I'm going to give them uh, a really good, honest answer. And that establishes the basis of trust. And so I would just, if I could, if there was one word that I hope that both my peers and my clients and those around me, who know me separately, they would just say, we trust her. I think I think that has to be earned. And I think that is something that you can't take for granted. And so I would hope that that would be the leading word that people would say about me when they talk about my legacy, was that I was just somebody that they trusted implicitly.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a given with your work ethic.
I hope so.
All right, so let's hop into the lightning round and see what makes you tick, Kristi.
All right.
So what's your favorite part of the home buying process?
Oh, mutual, mutual acceptance on a contract. There's still a lot left to go after that. And I know a lot of agents might say like getting the keys or closing or whatever, but I love when we get a contract, um, a purchase and sale agreement under contract, we've got it signed around, and everybody just feels like this huge relief that this process is like well underway. My husband jokes, when he's like, um, if I'm writing a contract, call me mutual. We got mutual, mutual. He just knows that that's one of my my favorite words, mutual. So I would say when we're under contract and we have mutual acceptance, I think that's my favorite part of the process.
Okay. And your go-to spot for the perfect latte in Sammamish or Issaquah?
My mom's house. Does that sound
Really?
terrible? Of all the places that I take people to go, we've got some cute coffee shops in the area. My mom makes a really great caramel macchiato for me. And she lives locally, so I just have to hop on over to her house. So
Hey, yeah, that's the best place to go, right?
that's right. Go back to mom's.
All right. Most memorable deal you've ever closed?
Hmm. I think I talked about this earlier, but definitely the house that I just sold for my parents. We when they had left and had packed up and I had helped them buy a house in a retirement community on the other side of town, I went and I did a video walkthrough when it was totally empty and sent it to my three siblings. And it was really impactful, um, because this house that had been filled with so much love and so much stuff, and all of our kids had grown up in this house, was now empty and ready for a new buyer who I have come to love because they live two doors away from me, because that's how close my parents' house was. They are now. I walked my dog in the cul-de-sac the other day, and the gentleman Awesome was out doing some yard work in the front yard, and he just said again, just tell your parents how much we love the house. The kids love it. We had another baby here and he was taking care of the yard. And I think just knowing that is the full circle moment of being able to, take care of your parents and then also kind of see the next phase of a family move in. That was definitely the most memorable, at least in the last few years.
That's awesome. And what's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Oh, We have our backyard. We've been in our house for, I was pregnant with our now 20-year-old when we bought our house. So we've been here for almost 21 years. And our backyard has gone through a lot of changes. Since the kids were little, we had a play structure, and then we had this, big trampoline out there for a while. And then we did a rock feature and some plantings. And then we did a poured concrete patio. And now we've got an amazing saltwater hot tub out there.
Oh, my, wow.
And that is my favorite place. So a glass of wine in a non-breakable glass in my saltwater hot tub at the end of the day. That's my favorite place to unwind. That's my favorite place to be. And that's what relaxes me.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing, saltwater hot tubs. I'm gonna have to look that up and get more info on that. That
Oh,
sounds
Donald, you're
nice.
missing out. It's amazing.
I'm gonna have to Google that as soon as we jump off.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Okay, one piece of advice you give someone just starting in real estate.
Hook on to a team or a partnership. Do a skills assessment, do a DISC assessment, Enneagram, figure out how you work, really understand your skills, and then figure out how you can be value added to another team in order to gain experience.
Okay, and book or podcast that has influenced your professional journey.
Ooh, Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. I spent a lot of time in the restaurant industry
Um,
before real estate. And my husband was a hotel restaurant graduate from Washington State University. And he writes it from a restaurant perspective, which I can very much relate to. But it talks about the idea that in so many service industries, hospitality is the key thing that people need. They want to feel taken care of. They want to feel like you care. They want to feel like you're invested in them. And this talks about unreasonable hospitality, going the extra mile, taking care of people at an unreasonable expectation. And I really, really relate to it. And it had so many connections between hospitality in a restaurant and the kind of hospitality that I would hope that my clients feel like I give them.
okay, yeah, that sounds like a good one. I'm gonna have to pick that up. Did you say your husband's the author?
No, we were in hospitality together. No, Will
Ah, okay, okay.
Guidara.
Will Kadar. Okay.
He's a restaurateur over in New York. He's married to Christina Tosi, who's a pastry chef in New York. She's been on with Gordon Ramsay's TV shows, food shows, and just from a great restaurateur family over in the East Coast.
Okay. And two more questions and I'll let you hop off. So what's the one thing most people don't know about you?
Um, I played and taught piano for most of my growing up years. So I took piano lessons from the age of 5 all the way through high school. I taught piano all 4 years that I was in high school. I had piano lessons out of my parents' home, worked from the time I think I was 14 when I first started giving piano lessons, and then played and accompanied a couple of musical groups in high school. So I was I wouldn't say I was accomplished because I worked very hard at it. I was definitely not. I have a brother who picks up piano and music like that. He's just kind of a musical genius. I worked really hard at it. Nothing really came easy, but I studied and I practiced, and then I got super burned out. And I think I've played the piano maybe a dozen times in my adult life.
Well, really. To your
Yeah.
mother's chagrin, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and last one, if you weren't in real estate, what career might you have pursued?
Well, originally I was going into law, so I really thought that I wanted to be a prosecuting attorney. That was what I really thought that was my job. But as I've gotten older, it was interesting. My oldest daughter asked me this question not too long ago. I think that probably my skills and abilities better fit a news reporter. I think I would have gone into some type of TV news reporting. I love doing the research, the writing, the talking. I love that part of it. So I think I would have been some kind of a news reporter or anchor.
Okay. Yeah, I think we definitely need some journalists with your work ethic and integrity these days. So maybe maybe that's your next pivot.
Maybe that is my second half, my second career
Yeah,
calling.
yeah, for sure.
I don't
All
know.
right.
I think I'm looking forward. The nice thing about real estate is that there are always other pieces, other aspects, whether you go from residential to commercial. Right now, I've got a lot of land development stuff that I'm working on. So I've got some builders that I've got some land under contract with, and I'm looking forward to kind of going through that process too. So I think, the idea of keeping it fresh and being able to kind of change not just your business style, but also the people that you're serving and the type of real estate that you're selling, just for me keeps it fresh and makes it feel like I could do this for another 20 years.
Yeah, you probably could easy. You're certainly young enough. You could do it 30 and 40 more years probably.
I don't know. I'd be pretty old. But yeah, it's a good career and one that I'm glad that I have grown into the way that I
Okay. All right, Christy. So before we hop off, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, reach out, collaborate, what's the best way for them to contact you?
have. I am on my phone all the time. So they can always reach me on my cell. All of my social media handles are Kristi Jenkins Real Estate. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube at Kristi Jenkins Real Estate. And my email address is kristijenkinsrealestate@gmail.com.
All right, awesome. All right, Christy. So yeah, this has been great chatting it up with you. I really had a great time. I hope to have you back sometime soon.
Thank you, Donald. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your generosity and for the excellent questions. And it was really fun to get a chance to talk to you.
Oh, likewise, likewise. All right, Christy, take care. You have a great day.
Thank you. You
It's
too.
been fun. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.